Hey, Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to the podcast. It's your girl, Afnan.
And it's Farah.
And we are rooted black girls here to talk about all things women being black, all the stuff. Today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about something that I thought was like super spicy, which is like friendship breakups.
Tough one.
Girl, listen, I feel like when women like go through stages of their lives and their friends group change as well.
Yeah.
So when like they're having their waiting to exhale moment and they're like cutting off all of their hair as well.
Yeah. I've never done that with friend groups, you know?
Really?
Wanting
like
to like chop off all my hair.
Not necessarily because of the friend groups. I'd agree with you. But in terms of like when you're transitioning, you know, have you ever had those seasons where like you realize like your life has really changed? Your friend groups are different. The way you carry yourself is different. Your values are different.
It's definitely the Gemini in me. And I hate this because I see it's crazy. I see, and I don't want to use the C word, crazy, but I see how Kanye acts. And you could see
is
like.
Kanye Gemini?
Heck yeah.
Girl, I didn't know.
I relate more to the Kendrick Gemini than the Kanye Gemini.
Explain the Kendrick Gemini.
I feel like he is evolving and transitioning at all times, right?
Yes.
And I would claim this for all Geminis.
Yes.
And so you can't hold me to the person I was yesterday.
Yes.
So for some of my more concrete people, like my Tauruses, right? I got a lot of Scorpio friends, right? I think they are very concrete and want things to kind of like move in a more predictable way, right? And I'm kind of like flowing. I'm air, you know? And I don't want to be held to like standards, right?
Yeah.
And of course I'm going to be well, treat people well, but I want the freedom to evolve and transition on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person I was yesterday.
Got you. How has that been with your friends though? Because like maybe your friends don't move like that. So like how has that been with you?
I've noticed that, especially when I moved out to the Bay and then I was like, free the people, you know? dead ass. Like I was in the parks just like, you know, just vibing in the coffee shops, just chopping it up with people, right? Okay. And so I did notice that maybe I didn't do the best job of allowing my friends to see the evolution, right? Or be a part of the evolution. Because I was also in graduate school, right? Okay. And so I am now in a more seasoned space where the people that you love and you care about, you bring them along the journey. You evolve, you allow them to be there. You're more vulnerable with them. You admit things and struggles that you're dealing with. And that you kind of bring them along with you. When I was in grad school, I was changing at an exponential rate. Yes. I'm a Florida girl. Yeah. I was born in Oklahoma, y'all. you know, like crazy. Been in the South my entire life. And then I go, and then they put me in Plymouth Rock, right? Like it was just like, what is this? Has anyone been to Berkeley? Like it's insane, right? And so it was a very what's the word? Like a formative experience for me. Yeah. Changed significantly. And I didn't do the best job of bringing friends that I didn't leave behind, but that, you know, were back in Florida in the South, didn't bring them along the journey that well. Yeah.
If I interviewed your friends who are from back home, from like Jacksonville, right, where you're from, and I asked them what has Farah's transition been like in those formative years, like when you were going to Berkeley and stuff like that, what would they say like before and after? Like, what do you think their experience was?
Hilarious. They're just like, you were a lot calmer, right? Because I think the Bay is just like, it's water, it's cool air, 100, almost 90% of the time, right? Yeah. They only have like a month of like heat, like, you know, where there's an exorbitant amount of heat. Yeah. So cool air, calm. So I became my environment, really calm, very spiritual, very rooted. Okay. But I think they will say is that we couldn't catch you. You were always busy. So I was studying, and then I'd go to my kickbacks, you know, with the people that were there in the city. And so I didn't have enough time to bring people along the journey. Yeah. So they were out. They just didn't know what was going on.
Did you lose out of the loop because of the process?
Yeah, Yikes. I did.
Was that like
one of my main ones? And that was really kind of like
the bestie breakups.
Bestie breakup. Those are so and I don't even say best friends because it's just I have commitment problems.
We've talked about that. You don't like using that word.
I don't think it's necessary.
Really?
Yeah.
She's like, don't box me in.
Don't box
no
me
labels.
in. No labels. I don't like labels like that.
So have you ever had a friend who was like, oh, like you're my best friend? You're like, ooh, like what's your response to that? Or never? Do your friends just know you that way?
So some of my friends will say it to other friends, but I think they know how I feel, right? And my friends know, like, you're very important to me. You're like sisters. But I think when you have multi-level friendships, family groups, right? Part of a huge family, have cousins out the wazoo, grew up with them, right? Like friends I consider very highly, even to the regard of like a level of like family. But I just think it's unnecessary to do it. Like, you know where you stand.
Wait, she said it with a straight face. Like, we're definitely gonna like zoom back in and rewind that. So she like
in a great way, you know. And I've had to like, as I'm evolving, and I'm sure you'll speak to this, like as you evolve, you realize like, I'm not sure I want to bring you along this journey with me.
Yikes. Yeah. Do you think that like very intentionally, like, oh, I don't want to take you into my next chapter? Or is
as
it a
I became more intentional with myself, I realized that.
Interesting.
That I just like, I'm not going to work that hard to bring you along because I don't see the connection anymore, right? Yeah. And I don't see that you're putting in the effort as much as I am, or vice
that
versa.
Could be a whole episode by itself.
For sure. Like reciprocity. What did Lauren say? She says something like, give me some reciprocity. Yeah, reciprocity is it. And so when you're not seeing this bi-directional flow of like, people can show up the way that they want, but you don't see the bidirectionality, you know, the way that they show up. I mean, what can you do? Yeah. And I feel like some people did feel that way about me. Like my really good friend Veronica, she like held on for the 5 years. That
she's like, girl, you're not getting rid of me. Veronica's so dope.
I know, she's really dope, mashallah. But she did. She was like, I don't think I heard from you for like a month. Like I didn't hear from you like in a month period. Shout out to the friends
who hold you accountable and give you space to like be missing and come back.
She did allow me that because I think now I do my catch up phone calls in the car. I don't know if you're like that.
On the move all the time. On the move.
But as soon as I park my car and I come to my house, my sanctuary, I'm just like, okay, gots to go. Yeah. You know,
really,
like
one of my close friends is like, I know if Afnan's calling me, she's in the car, and when she gets to her destination, that's it.
It's time to go.
If I don't answer, she's like, I'm hanging up with the husband because I know like, okay, I can talk to you later. Afnan will not call me back for 5 days.
Do you think that's cool though? Because sometimes my friends are like, that's not cool. Why can't you prioritize like talking outside of like you doing something or being in the car or cleaning your house? Like, why can't you actually just
that's a good point.
Make some time.
I've never had to have those conversations with my friends because I do carve out that time for like the hour-long catch-up session. And then after that, it's like, girl, it's been 2 weeks. I'm alive. Are you alive? You good? I love you. Do you need something? Good. Text me. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Exactly.
But I think those have been really, really interesting experiences. I think I've also had like the friend breakups, if you will. Yeah. And those are always tough because I never necessarily see them coming. Like there was one when I was much younger, like middle through high school. Like I've always had like one roll dog and that's it. I'm like very,
so
very
you have
slow.
best friends.
Yeah, I have best friends. Mashallah. And we're like tight. They know everything between those years, that chapter, wherever we're at. And then after that, it's, you know, I love you. Your secrets will die with me. Your business is my business.
Don't be the friend that when you break up, you try to like tell on air secrets. That's really whack. I've never experienced that, but that's trash.
I've never had to experience that either.
Yeah. But, you know, but that's a universal rule, I hope.
That's girl code.
Yeah, girl, like code.
Period.
Life codes. 10 commandments. Call it the 11 commandments.
Period. No, I think so. Yeah, so I've always had like one good girlfriend at a time who's like my ride or die. Ooh. And then I was cool with that. I always felt like envious if people could have like 5 or 6 friends.
I'm gang. I have like so many.
Yeah, like I'm talking about like they all equally know you as well as each other in different connection spaces. I haven't had that until I got older, right? But like for me, it was like, you know, everything about my life. Our relationship wasn't relegated to one space. So for example, when I was in high school, like we talked about the boys, we talked about parents, we talked about school, we talked about college, everything.
This was one vessel
and that's like, you know, like my vault. And then when I got to college, it was this person, like, you know, because the school was where I was so often. I lived on campus. I you know, I lived where I worked. I was an RA. So again, I find that I also picked people whose lifestyles very closely mirrored mine. We had to have really similar values. And I felt like between like high school and college, and then college to professional, like our value systems changed. And I really not regret, but like learning from myself, I realized I didn't give people a lot of space to grow. It was like, girl, we're on the next move, and you know how I am. I
like
can
this
be
vault that's just so concrete for you. Yeah.
And so even like the growth, like, girl, we're graduating, we're on to the next thing. Like, let's go. You're not doing this. You're not doing this. What the hell you do with your life? Oh, I can't. We can't relate. We can't relate because the way I move is different. And it's like, I would find that some of the friends wouldn't be able to either hold space or they couldn't support me in that new chapter, right?
They weren't
like
there.
Yeah, they weren't there, right? Like if you're still in school, for example, and I'm in the professional world and I'm dealing with corporate America bullshit, and you haven't necessarily had that experience, I found that I'm the type of person who surrounds myself with people who can help me problem solve, right? And that's something that I've had to work through in a lot of different relationships, even with family and friends.
I have a friend who asked me, do you have any relationships where you don't evaluate the value that they bring into your life?
So
I died when I heard that. I was like,
how do you hear that though? Maybe I missed.
I heard it like, does someone always have to bring something into your life?
Fact, 100%.
Is that but she kind of yielded like it's problematic. Like you're always assessing value. Can people just show up for who they are?
You know what?
You just vibe.
You know what?
Like a human being.
Let's go there. We're talking about therapy, right?
Yeah.
So, and you guys know I've done like years of therapy and I'm still like a work in progress, alhamdulillah. But one thing I realized is something I learned growing up is that I had to earn my keep in all spaces. I had to earn love. Like I wasn't loved I felt that. I'm not saying that's what my parents intended. My parents loved me to death.
I felt that way. I felt that way too.
Like if you,
it's one of my core values.
Yes.
Yeah. I had to perform for the love.
You have to perform.
Yeah.
And if you're not contributing
it's not,
value,
y'all get therapy because it's not right.
It's not
inherently you're valuable and lovable
because you're a human being. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, but I learned that I am valuable because of what I put out.
Yes.
Right? And I am valuable for what I contribute to the group, and I'm valuable for what I bring to the table.
And equally, you're judging people for that
exactly.
as well. Same.
Right? If I accept that standard for my life, which is what I've learned through therapy, like the love and acceptance and space and grace I can give other people is because I've given it to myself as I grow, and that's continued to expand.
You are your number one case study.
Absolutely.
All your friendships are and relationships are mirrors to you.
Yeah.
And what you need to work on.
And when I would look back at my friendships, like, damn, I was the one who always was walking away. I was always the one who was like, well, this is not working for him anymore because you're not contributing equally to where I'm at now.
For sure.
Right? And I always had like a very strong belief of it's not about like only me getting, but it's like I would have a very fixed mindset that was kind of toxic around success. And so it's like, I want this for us. If you are my friend, we're going to go to the top together. We're going to do it together. Anything that's mine is yours. And then as soon as you deviated, like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore, right? I don't know if I want to do professional corporate work. I don't know if I want to start and even in this space.
Yeah. I was about to say, like, I have appreciated that you allow me to present the way that I want.
And I'm trying to get even better. I have a lot more work to do in that space. But like, I remember I would be like, girl, this is the next move. Why? Like, for example, Instagram. I remember there was a time where I was like, you're pretty, like you want to do this thing on social media. You want to make more, another business, but you don't try social media. Like, we can't talk. I'm trying to go read the book to help me figure it out. And that's toxic. That's toxic because it doesn't give people space to learn their lessons when they're supposed to learn. I had a professor in college one time pull me aside because it's really embarrassing, actually. I'm a piece of work, y'all.
Yeah.
So she pulled me aside and I was complaining to her about my project members. I was like, you put me in this group. I didn't have a choice to choose. I would have clearly chosen the other students because these niggas ain't
group
shit.
Projects are horrific. Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, they need too much hand holding to do their parts. I'm too busy for this. Can you give me somebody else who's up to speed, or can I just do my own project?
Yeah.
That's like, I was like, can I just do my own project? I have no problem doing all the work by myself, but that's easier than allowing space for them to catch up. I just don't freaking have the patience at the time. Yeah. And so she sat me down in her office. She's like, listen, she's like, just because you may feel that you're the smartest person in the room, and sometimes you might be, right? Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Like, you're very bright.
Yeah.
You don't get to tell other people that. Like, that's an asshole move. And I was like,
oh, office hours.
Right? She's like, you got to give people space to come to the conclusions you've already come to. It's not fair for you to rob them of those learning moments. And I was like, no, but I'm trying to help them, like, learn it. Like, I was really offended by that because it wasn't like, oh, I'm not trying to help people. It's never like, oh, I'm better than you or nothing like that. But it was, if I know the answer, I'm going to give it to you so we can move faster.
Yeah.
That's toxic.
Yeah.
That's toxic because there's a beauty in being where you're at and growing and flowing and all these other things. And that was a process for me.
For sure.
And I think that I also saw that in my friendships. I did that in the workplace, and it didn't help that I worked in corporations that valued that, like, go competitive nature, push each other, challenge each other, raise the bar. And I would do that, in my personal friendships. And slowly, one of my, like, friendships in my 20s, like, one of my really good homegirls was the one to be like, I don't want to have a business meeting every time we talk on the phone. I was like, yikes.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, And I had to readjust, like, okay, where's this coming from? And at first I felt really bad. Like, am I a bad person? Am I pushing people to do things they don't want to do? And then I realized, no, I would love for people to have the best for them. I'm not the one to make that decision for them. Yeah. Right? Like, maybe you're not suited for a business. Maybe you don't want to make multiple 6 and 7 figures, right? Maybe that's not what you want. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. But like allowing people to come to those conclusions by themselves without also, because then I think I over-indexed once I learned that to like, I'm not going to tell nobody shit, because I don't want to be the one to like boss you around or make you feel like I'm pushing you. Yeah. And then people be like, Afnan, like, where's that like generous spirit used to have about you, about like checking in, like, oh, like someone was doing social media, I'd be like, oh, good for you, period. Yeah. It wouldn't be like to create a boundary there, right? Not even like to make sure I didn't overstep. You know what I'm saying? And that was challenging.
You did an overcorrection.
I did an overcorrection. And so now it's just like, I listen for, hey, I'm struggling for this. And I'd be like, oh, well, I have a resource if you're interested, but if you're not, totally cool. And I leave it where it lies. And I give people space to like grow organically in the way and at the speed that they want to.
It sounds like you've been doing the work, because it sounds like initially you were anticipating people's needs. This is eldest daughter issues, right?
We always come back to this.
As you're anticipating and like just serving the room as to what you need to push, you know, the whole family forward, right? Because
so true.
Even your younger siblings, you feel like a reflection of you and yourselves.
And your parents would tell you that.
They
like,
were.
If
they mess up, you mess up.
It's your fault. Yeah, and I'm just like, that's so toxic.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so, you know, with friendships, I've always felt like they're a complete mirror to you, you know, and that you're learning. And I'm seeing that even through your journey of what you're describing, that your friendships have been a mirror to you, and you've grown through the process.
For sure.
But as I've grown, like, I have an issue around asking for help, right? Because I was supposed to have the answers. Yeah. But how do you bring someone along the journey without asking for what you need? And even asking, hey, Afnan, I need space right now, you know, or I can't do this work, but let's find a solution to do so, right? And so, you know, friendships, especially as you get older, you just feel like your friendship should last a period of time. And so I think I was super naive around, hey, we've gotten here. We've been friends for like 10 years. How could we ever break up? Yeah. But like one of my really good friends, Veronica, she told me, she was like, friendships break up all the time. If a marriage can end after 30 years, you don't think a friendship can end after 10? I was like,
that's a good point. I never thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I kind of move and accept people for who they are, right? And I think I'm presenting in that way because I want people to give me that grace. Yep. Right?
We love how we want to be loved.
Yeah. 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 So I want people to show up the way that they want, and that I can kind of receive and accept them in that way. And if I can't, then I tell them, like, I can't show up for you. Yeah. You know, but the way that I don't need that one vessel, right? I have multiple sources. I don't need a gang. That is. I had the friend that I did break up with, really sad, you know, and I wish them all the best, right?
Of course.
But she was a ride or die friend. Yes. But I was like, when I don't be dying, bro, like what? I don't need a ride or die, because I'm never in those type of scenarios. I'm pretty like melancholy, you know, like I'm chill, bro. But she was wild. Like when she was there for you, it was like exponential. Like you felt like, wow, I really have somebody in my corner. But when equally as much as she'd present well for you, she would go on the other direction of wildness, you know, and accept it, and would hope that you would accept them for that. Yeah. At some point I was just like, this oscillating between ride or die, riding and dying was just way too much for me. And I had to get off the train, right? And I don't want to go into
next stop.
Yeah. I was like, get me off. Really? It was last stop was Paris, bro. I don't know. I think we were in London when we just fell out. Really? You know, trips will really show you.
Internationally?
We were international.
That's the worst.
Yeah, she just did something where I was just like, I can't allow this to happen again. You know, I had reached my peak, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like there were red flags that you saw along the way?
The entire time. But I think
it's hard. Do the best for people, you know?
Yeah, you just tried, and she's an awesome friend, and so many people love her, you know, and I still have a great deal of love for her. Course. Don't think that I see it moving forward, right? Yeah. Definitely pray for her and hope she has a wonderful life, right? Absolutely. But you just realize, like, I've let that go. I let that go, you know? And so it was a hard pill to swallow, but it was my first step in my adult journey of just like, this doesn't work. How do you move forward? Okay. And really assessing, because I think for a long period of time, I never called her out for a bad behavior. where other friends would be like, this is not acceptable, and she would adjust for them. But for me, she never did, because I never wanted to ask her to do something different. I let people present the way that they want.
Yeah, you let people do the
present as they want, and then I readjust, right? Okay. But to a point where the adjustment wasn't good for me anymore.
Interesting.
And so that's when I finally had to let it go. But we had a conversation. I didn't ghost her or anything about that.
That's
anything
good.
Like that. So I did feel good about that.
I can definitely. I in my
You're
past, I'm a ghoster. Here's the thing: I will ghost if I will attempt to have several conversations.
You're very communicative.
I try.
Yeah.
I've messed it up a lot, so I'm still working on it. But I will try multiple times to like have like a very not like hints, like, hey, let's talk about this. And if it gets to the point where I have to walk away because I'm about to say something really disrespectful out of my face, or if I feel like you're really not respecting what I'm trying to say, and there's not a space for collaboration multiple times, not one time, multiple times we're having this conversation, and I feel inherently, not that we can't figure it out, but if I feel
your core, like
if in my core I feel like you do not have the capacity to understand and have empathy for where I'm coming from, right? Or two, you do not have the willingness to endure this uncomfortable medium as we're working through the frustration or whatever to move us forward. There's nothing else I can do if those two things don't exist.
That sounds fair, though.
You know,
it seems completely fair.
People will, at that point, I won't say, hey guys, just a heads up, I'm leaving at this point because you've exhausted all of your attempts to resalvage.
You don't tell them that?
I don't tell them that.
Oh, okay.
Like, it'll just
that could be the cherry on top of that. Like, that's all you got to add to that sequence.
You know what? But
usually
when I'm ghosting, it's like at this point, you don't have the capacity. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we're closing the door forever. So I'll ghost for a few months, a few years, and then come back, and then we'll revisit it. Yeah. Yeah, I would not
talk to you.
Don't
do that to me.
I have never had any friends who I've cut off cold. Yeah. And we just never talked again. I don't have any of those friendships. Yeah. Even girls that I knew from like high school and middle school who we like had a falling out and we're not best friends anymore. Yeah. Right? Like still happy birthday, girl. I wish you the best. Baby shower, like we're cool. Yeah. But I just don't show up in their lives as that ride or die friend anymore. And I don't expect that of them either. So it's just like lots of love. I wish you the best. I'm praying for you. Yeah. If anything happened and they called me, I would be there. Yeah. But we just know that we're not first on the emergency contact list, if you will.
And they get it.
Okay. And we both feel mutually about that with each other. But I've realized that sometimes I have to be more explicit. Like recently, I've had people who now have the mental capacity, have the emotional intelligence. Either they went to therapy or if they've been through.
That's what I was going to say. Lives. A lot of people are not self-aware.
They're not, and
it's
exhausting for me.
It's exhausting, you know. And I think a lot of people, like, if you can do work on yourself, right, you're going to show up and present a lot better in your friendships and relationships, significant others, 100%. Right? 100%. And I've known that in my journey. Like sometimes I think, if I got married right after undergrad, I'd be a terror. Disaster. You know what I mean?
Oh like, my God.
Like, I would have, you know, when I'm doing a lot of my better self-discovery after school, because you just I didn't have the mental kind of wherewithal to like really allow that to happen, that growth. Yeah. But yeah.
And I think the other thing is some of those folks have come back around, like even really recently, as even up to this year, a few months ago, one of the people, and this also extends to family too, this is not exclusive to like my friends at all, but family will say, you know, I can now identify all the times you did try and I just didn't get it. And I wish you would have told me that you were walking away because I didn't get it, because then I would have known to keep trying even more versus like I'm just frustrated and I'm just thinking this is a conversation. But then I'm looking through your behaviors. You're not contacting me. You're not hitting me up. You're not reaching out. Yeah. And I'm just like left trying to figure out what the hell happened. When in my mind, it was like very clear. We've had very specific conversations about where my needs are not being met and how can we work this out between us and what do you need, and a lot of people will tell me that wasn't super clear because then they could decide like, oh, is this worth trying again or should I just let it go? Yeah. And I realized looking back that I could have done.
Do you personally like closure? But you say you're the one that's always walking away.
I am the one who's my closure is I know I tried. My thing is like, I want for if that person tried to go, and I've never had this happen with anybody, but let's say that person tried to go and say like, oh, Afnan is a bitch and she did da-da-da-da-da. And I could pull out receipts and be like, so on this day we had this conversation and remember you got nasty with me and I let you say what you were gonna say and I quietly exited this conversation stage left after I asked you 3 times. You know what I mean? Like I have never had someone come back and say, you know, you didn't try, or or you just totally like didn't give me a chance.
Yeah.
There's definitely folks who'll say you could have done better, and I take that 100%.
Yeah.
But for me, that's the closure. Like, yeah, Allah, did I do everything I possibly could have?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm the read up on a book, and I will look at an article of like how to set boundaries. I've done all of that. Yeah. Right. And when I'm done and I know I don't have any more effort to give respectfully, because there's a difference between let's talk about it like adults and it's like, bitch,
yeah.
And I don't want to ever go there. I never want to go there. And I can. I know that I can. I know I can and I will. Yeah. But I try my best never to get to that point. Yeah. And so sometimes I have to just
Especially I feel like with our sorority, we both pledged Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated. But I feel like we know how to work that boardroom space with people that you love. Nasty, right? Nice, nasty. I call it the nice nasty, right? Where like we're sitting and having to with people that you kick it with after, right? Yes. They're your best friends, right? But you have to use Robert's rules of order to get them together, right? So that's that what I've learned, and that skill set has taken me very far. Like I can do this with my friends, let alone you know, that I work with and clearly have a boundary with.
Delineation, yeah.
So I've always been grateful about that. But I do think and sense that when friendships and relationships, when we break up, it's really truly a misalignment of values at that point.
That's
right?
exactly what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think you have to. And I think you won't recognize it unless you know what your values are and you're very clear on what you need and what you don't need.
I am just really recognizing my values now.
Really?
Right? Like, yeah, I always know like Allah, right?
Of course. Yeah. Like
and
the
my
obvious
family,
ones.
friends, right? But like really I've taken the time to... So I was talking to someone and I was like, yeah, so sometimes I sense a lack of vulnerability with like friends or significant others. And then they were saying, okay, kind of sounds like you like vulnerability with yourself. And I was like, ooh. And I was like, how? And they were noticing that I don't really journal or talk to myself. I'm always keeping myself busy, right? Like I'm never doing this like introspective work of just like, who are you? Like I don't take the time, right? I'm always trying to find escape routes, whether that's watching, and you saw this, I was watching the September 11th documentary for like hours. Like,
poor thing. Like we were stressed out trying to get like the set together. She's like, Afnan, I'm done. I'm like, okay.
I was like, I am done. And I zoned out watching this documentary, and then did knee deep. And it's just that I was just interested in figuring out, and I didn't learn much about this in grade school about the Cold War. So I did a deep dive around like an interest that I have, right? Like just like history or something. Yeah. And how that kind of brew up the happenings in Afghanistan, right?
And it could be hard to track that because it could look like that's like a pastime or a hobby, but really it's avoidance.
It's an avoidance. So sometimes now I've been really working at like journaling and just freehand, just go, you know? Yeah, and it's crazy.
That's so amazing.
When you do that, what comes out? Right. And then you can also go back and see the growth too.
Have you ever read your notes to yourself? And
I'm like, oh my God, different space, different girl, you know, like different woman altogether. And now that I know what my value set is, I remember being in, you know, a relationship where there was a complete misalignment of values. I was just like, we don't even care about the same things, you know? It's like that's why it never worked.
And it's
right?
Or it's hard.
It was hard. It was arduous. It was taskful. You know, it didn't feel easy. You know, it didn't feel joyful. It felt like work, right? But you thought the work was like, well, we got to do this.
Like, are we married or are we friends? Like,
are we married or are we friends, right? And so in all relationships, friendships, significant others, like you really have to know what your value set is, and then know and survey that among the people that you're with, right? And then now that I look back retrospectively, the relationships that are the easiest for me are when we're aligned with values.
100%.
I'm like,
because you don't have to. It's not a lot of work to. It just flows.
It just flows because our value set's the same when we show up in our best capacity on that time, and then also allow ourselves to have grace. Or I give them grace when I know that they're not showing up in their best way, right?
Like, I know you.
Just like I know my friend. Yeah. I know my friend, and I know that they need space right now.
Yep.
So I would definitely recommend people to like journal, be vulnerable with yourself. Find out what your values are, right? Like do top 5, 10. Vulnerability.
Big one for me. Like I need to be able to tell like my close friend. It's a very short list. Yeah. But like I need to be able to like, love you, girl, bye, and really mean it. I don't want people around me who I can't feel like I can do that.
I can't say I love you. You know.
Or like, oh my God, I missed you so much. Like there's some friends be like, bitch, we just hung out last week, and there's not space for like real. Now, of course, I'm all with the kiki and the jokes or whatever. There's a place and time for that. But I find that in my friendships, I need the real vulnerability. vulnerability. Like if you can't call me unannounced ugly cry, and we're not gonna make like a big deal out of it, and it's just like, okay, the moment's just gonna pass, then like we're not gonna work.
I feel like we've talked about this. One of my favorite kind of behavioral writers and commentators, Brene Brown, she wrote the book Power of Vulnerability.
Yes, girl.
And she talks about, and I think we've talked about it on the pod, this exact example here, but how you build vulnerability is that when people do trustful things, like trusting things with you, then you leak a little bit of vulnerability. And it has to be this sliding scale of like trust activities that you've experienced with them.
Because you don't go tell your business.
In addition, you can't tell your business to everybody, right? It's just like, oh, okay, I remember telling her about my grandmother being sick. She texted me 2 weeks later and said, how's your grandmother? You know, you don't expect that with a new brewing relationship or friendship or even a long-standing one. People are living their lives,
but it's
right?
an opportunity for someone to rise to the occasion and show up for you.
And then at that point, you can be you're like,
you can share something
you
else.
can share something. And then there's a scale.
Yeah, and then they give it back. They share something personal
and
to
that's
them.
how you build vulnerability. Because I think there is this new wave, like, cry neo soul rapper, right? Who's like crying. Like, I think NBA Youngboy, he changed his name. Like, he admits on his raps that he has herpes, genital herpes. You know, and I'm just like, nigga, these people don't deserve that. You don't need to tell people that. I'm sure they're
just gonna weaponize it. My God.
You know, and maybe they'll weaponize it. Maybe they'll be great about it, but you just don't know who you're releasing that information to. And then I think that adds in like stigmatizing, you know, viruses, right?
Super.
Yeah. So I'm not technically going all the way there, right? And I think maybe if that gave him some level of freedom just to say that, because there is a lot of freedom and vulnerability in releasing, and I think a lot of people overshare sometimes, or because they just want to release.
Yeah.
But I would recommend like building trusting relationships
in a safe space.
Yeah, safe spaces.
Because it could be so hurtful.
Have you ever been love bombed on the opposite end? Where people just give it to you too much before you've earned it, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
I think sometimes, because I'm also like super sensitive and vulnerable in general, I can see like, most times I can see like, oh, this person just really needs someone. Let me not be an asshole in this moment. Let me support them.
But you end up not sharing with them.
I end up not sharing.
Right?
So what I'll do is I'll receive. I'll thank. I'll support them.
Yeah.
And sometimes like people have come up to me and be like, you know, I realize I don't know anything about you, and you know all my business.
Been there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And
I've seen that before. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, but the safe space, I didn't need the safe space. You did. And I'm glad I was able to support you. You're not at a deficit because you've shared that with me. Like, it will go to the grave with me. And I think people can appreciate that. But some people on the other side are like, no, you have to tell me your business now. And I'm like,
I'm just like, no, I didn't. We didn't build that relationship, right? Of like this sliding scale of vulnerability and trusting behavior.
It has to be like a mutually beneficial exchange.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. But then I'm also on the opposite end of just like, I'm trying not to evaluate each relationship that comes into my life, you know, especially men too. I'm just like, well, what can you do for me? You know, and it's just like, you don't let men also be like just themselves, human beings, you know, and that's kind of difficult. It's a challenging thing to do, right? To hold space. And that's even for friendships too. And so, friendships, I think I more easily allow people to show up in the way that they want.
I think for men, it's like, we're so valuable. It's like, for what purpose do I entertain you at this moment?
Come on, my sisters right here, like, mashallah, I'm incredibly impressed by the women in my life. Yeah. And I think any brother who's
would be lucky to breathe the air in my...
The luckiest. The Rolodex of friends that I have, I'm like, Allah, that's how I know. Alhamdulillah. Like, I think I'm like, Allah, please allow the friendship groups that I have to be a mirror of the mercy that you have for me. You know? Because I feel very lifted in that. Alhamdulillah. I like the people that I meet.
We have some awesome friends, mashallah.
Amazing friends, alhamdulillah.
I've seen them like gather around for you and like cuddle and cover you. Oh my God.
Man, amazing, and I'm incredibly grateful, and I make incredible dua for them. I'm just incredibly grateful.
Yeah.
But like, I see that, and for any, marriage is always a hot topic, relationships, right? And I think friendships, like, you want to be a friend to your partner before, right?
So
these building blocks that we're talking about of values, trust, vulnerability.
Deposits, absolutely.
Friendship breakups can look very similar sometimes to relationship breakups, Yeah. And so I just, you're just thinking about like the evaluation of people and how they present to you, right? And so when we know we have these dope ass friends, right? And they're, considering and courting, men to like, potentially marry, you're just like, how are they showing up? What are you doing for me? You know? And it's hard not to have that evaluation of men all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think men have it hard as well, especially when you rock with a solid group of women, because they're gonna be like, what is he providing for my, like, I know you're a value queen, and they'll good friends will also call you unsettling, like, why are you with this man?
Why are you with this person?
Yeah.
And so I just I think I'm working on just being, and remember my word of the year is surrender. Did we talk about that?
We did a little bit.
And I've been doing a lot better of just sitting back.
I told you, I gave you compliments and kudos. I think you've done tremendous work in this space.
I am just really just enjoying observing and really assessing my feelings, right? The feels. Oh, the feels. I think that's Snow Allegra's album a few albums ago, right?
I know.
So I'm just, instead of like surveying and like clocking, you know, pocket watching these dudes, right? I'm just like, let me just observe how you show up, you know, and if you're dope and we can move forward, then that's cool. If you're not, then bounce, right? But I think there's a time period where you can just relax and not assess value, right?
Yeah.
You're not like Forbes, like counting down Kylie Jenner, calling her a billionaire, right? Like this evaluation of like you're a billionaire.
Yeah.
So this evaluation of men, I think there should be an allotment of allowing, you know, men to kind of just show up,
do their thing,
right?
With limits though. Let's be clear,
right?
Don't
with
waste my
limits,
damn time.
Yeah. Oh, like 30 days, you know. You know,
probationary
period. Yeah. But like, I think there's a lot of legwork that you need to do in the beginning and you can't predict everything. Relationships there are divorce, you know, there is divorce,
it's a fact,
right? It's a fact, right? And I think beautifully our religion, Islam, has allows that provision, right? Of just like, if this is not working,
sometimes it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and you can allow it. Even if you did the legwork to like really choose a dope person in your life, friendship, relationship, then you know there are provisions there to allow you to get out of it.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But I always hope that people do it gracefully. You know, really like be able to call on people to help you, talk to people very kindly, right? I don't think there should be this finger pointing, like, you know, cussing people out, right? Yeah. And I've definitely been there too, right? Undergrad, you know, the beef between the deltas and the zetas, you know, it's just like whack shit.
It could be a lot.
I look back now and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, you know what? It was so serious back then. I think for me, I don't know. I just feel like we grow out of that space.
We did grow out of that.
I'm always going to throw a little shade every once in a while, but it's all love. Some of my best homegirls are AKs. I love them to death.
I think it's so funny, even the way that we kind of like have our tiffs. It's I think that's a space that I'm evolving, right? Yeah. Because you think like with my other friendships, because they're solely friendships, it's different. But because we have this business friendship and this parallel sliding scale, our tiffs are different, you know? So I don't come in as the most evolved person like I do with other relationships that I've had for a longer period of time, right? So I thank you for giving me a lot of grace in showing up, you know, the way that I do sometimes. And sometimes I saw that you had a client today who called you back up and was like, yo, you know, like, I apologize. And I often do that too. I'm just like, I'll come back and I'm like, Afnan, you know, actually I've been thinking about it. This is how I'm presenting now.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You give me lots of practice too, because like I've been off the chain before. Yeah. And it gives me a chance to be like, okay, I don't have to respond right now. Yeah. And usually like as I'm giving myself time to calm down, like you or another person will come back and be like, I'm sorry. I was hungry.
Yes.
I haven't had coffee.
Hangry,
like,
coffee. Yes.
I'm like, it's all good. And we can just move on. It doesn't have to be like serious, you know?
Exactly.
So
and then I think there's also like the expectation that not everything's going to be copacetic all the time. It's not going to be 100% sterile. For sure. Like you should allow for space. Like there will be tiffs. Because I know other people who on the opposite end, if one thing happens, they drop.
They're unraveled. Yeah.
Unraveled on that end, or they just drop a friend and like move on. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even guys will do this. Like a girl will do one thing and they're like, bounce.
Yeah.
I
feel like at the root of that, in my mind, is that there's not like if you're not equipped to fixing those kind of problems, if you don't have experience there, you're gonna just like, oh, I'm inept. I gotta abandon ship. And I think it's uncomfortable as hell to lean into those situations, and that's how I've learned. Yeah. Like that's literally leaning into those difficult situations. And I think I do it the most for my kids, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when we're talking like older family members or even parents and they're just so stuck in their ways, and it's so annoying when it's like, I just wish you'd expand your horizons a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to practice that.
You'd have a better time in this relationship
Oh my
too.
God.
Yeah. If you're willing and able to work through this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to practice that now because I know, and we were talking about this in the previous episode with like, how like younger generations, like they just move differently. And like, it's very easy for us to say like, oh, you're lazy or not invested because they don't do the hustle grind mode like we do. And so just trying to be like, okay, well, if my kid doesn't go to college and if they don't want to, you know what I mean? If they don't want to do a 9 to 5, if they want to walk dogs for 6 months and then do this, but they're providing for themselves and they're happy, like, can I be okay with that?
Right? Question for myself, right?
Yeah, I'm still working on it, right?
I know. Because I think we see ourselves, even when I'm giving any person a piece of advice, although I love to be objective, I'm probably giving you a piece of advice that's reflective of my own value system. Or your own
values, absolutely.
So at the end of the day, you want people to have a strong foundation with themselves so that they can then move forward and make the best decision for themselves at the end of the day, right? Like you're the only person that can make the best decision for you.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes, people seek outside counsel all the time. And I would want people to learn how to turn inward and trust yourself.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself. You know, there's no way that you'd be on a game playing a sport and then bet on the other team winning, right?
Never
ever, right? So trust your gut, trust yourself. You have and are capable to like have beautiful relationships. Absolutely. But it really requires some inward work, some self-reflection, some self-awareness.
And you're never done.
You're never done.
People say that, but it's really true. You're never done.
And every relationship that is entering your life is for you to do better work and become a better person.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we were assembled together.
Yeah.
Like
it's happening for you, not to you.
It's not.
100% of the time.
Nothing's happening to you. You know, like if you're wondering why I am where I am right now, look in the mirror and you don't want to think prosperity gospel like Joel Osteen, who thinks like, oh, I'm a great human being and that's why I'm rich. Like it's not that. That's whack. That's whack as fuck, right? But like when you think about the relationships in your life, like the only individual that's a constant with you is you. Yeah. Like how are you presenting?
Are you with God? Your creator, your source energy.
That's it. Source energy, right? Yeah. And so that's what you're trying to perfect with every relationship that you have.
100%. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, so I think we did that.
I did.
I hope.
I think, you know what? And the conversation will continue because I'll learn something else. You'll learn something else. We'll have more friendships, more relationships to be able to talk about, inshallah.
And I hope you guys can like continue the conversation among your friend groups, continue the conversation in the comments. Right?
Let us know. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, if you've been listening this whole season with our updated camera equipment and and you haven't subscribed, like don't be a hater. Like just press the button.
I heard someone say like be a hater but subscribe to that, right?
No,
like
really.
Like hate on us, okay?
But
talk
like about
subscribe.
Us, right? Thumbs it down, but subscribe.
Subscribe.
But with that being said, we will wrap it up there. Peace.
Peace, y'all.